Hi everybody, and welcome to this Monday video series. In this video blog, I'm going to have a look at emotional intelligence, what it means, as well as ways in which you can develop emotional intelligence in your child. Now, emotional intelligence, or EQ, is a relatively new term for something that I think people really have experienced intuitively throughout history. If you go and read history books or go back into the records, there are often accounts of people who might not have necessarily been the most intelligent person in a group or in an organization, but generally they just got on relatively well with other people, and other people felt good while they were around them, resulting in those people often achieving higher ranks or progressing higher in an organization than many of their peers. And that is exactly what the scientists found. When psychologists decided to actually study this, they found that people with a high EQ, or emotional intelligence, often are more successful than those with a high IQ. This is because people with a high EQ are usually more even-tempered. They are more in tune with what many of their co-workers or people they have to work in a group setting with are feeling, and they generally also engender greater trust in other people. Now, the great news is that EQ is not necessarily something that you are born with, but it is something that can be learned. And I'm going to share with you 5 tips on how to support and develop your child's emotional intelligence. The first thing that's really important to do is to empathize with what they are feeling. It means to really understand what they are going through. Now, empathizing with your child doesn't mean that you accept his reactions and tantrums, for instance, or even that now he doesn't have to do what you say. If you asked him to tidy up his toys and he's having a tantrum, he still has to tidy up his toys. But instead, empathizing with your child purely means that you really see the situation from his perspective. The second thing that's really important to do is to allow for the emotion. Make a space for it psychologically, if you will. So even in all my years as an educational psychologist and all the experience I have in working with children, I still find myself from time to time saying things like, "Oh, don't be sad," or "don't cry." And parents report that they often do this at home too. And this is something we want to stop ourselves from doing. We want to let our children know that it is allowed for them to feel whatever they are feeling. The third thing you want to do is be sure to name it. Young children often just feel this rush of emotion. They've got all this unpleasant feeling going on inside of themselves, and they don't often really understand what it is that's going on. If you label the emotion, and through labeling that, you help your child to build his vocabulary of emotional words, you are helping him to really make sense of what it is that he is feeling. So you can say things like, "I can see that you're getting frustrated trying to open that box, and I can see that it's making you angry." Then the fourth thing you want to do is to make sure that you help them find more appropriate ways in which to express negative emotions. Now, we often make the mistake of having children believe that a negative emotion, like sadness or anger, is a bad emotion, and that's not true. So we all just feel what we feel, and there's nothing that we can do about that. But I will explain to children that a negative feeling like anger or sorrow or grief is often like food that's been left at the back of the fridge. And if you leave that food at the back of the fridge and it starts going off and it's there for too long, it's going to make you really sick if you eat it. And the same with a negative emotion. It needs to get out in order for people to heal from that. And so I will explain that there are only certain reactions that are acceptable, ways to get rid of that emotion. So, for instance, you want to explain that feeling angry is absolutely fine, but your child is not allowed to punch his sister when he's upset. He is allowed to perhaps punch a boxing bag, or tear up some newspaper, or scream into a pillow, or go for a run around the house, anything to get rid of some of that emotional energy. And then the last thing you want to do, the fifth thing, is to teach them to problem solve. Now, so often I name this, or always, I name this as the last step, because so often when children know what they are feeling and they are given an opportunity to express this, there's often no need to problem solve. Sometimes we all just need to vent. And when that emotion is all out, we already feel better and we can carry on with our daily lives. But in certain situations, if that problem is really big, you want to help your child to find a solution to it. And a really important point there is to always include them in the problem-solving process. So don't just give them a solution that you think will work, rather ask questions. Do you think this will work? Or what do you think could make the situation better? So for instance, if your child is constantly fighting with his sibling about toys, or his sibling is constantly taking his toys and then he's retaliating, you could suggest a few options perhaps and say to him, first ask, so what do you think we could do so this isn't a problem in the future? And if he's struggling to come up with ideas, you can give suggestions like, do you think it would help if we have separate toy boxes for yourself and for your sister so that your toys aren't mixed together? And we do know that the more that children have experience with problem solving, the more confident they become in their own ability to solve problems. And they'll probably be coming to you less and less to involve you in the arguments and the emotional upsets that they are having. So those are my 5 tips for developing emotional intelligence in your child. I really have enjoyed just putting this short video together. I always love putting the videos together, and I look forward to chatting to you next week about another topic. Have a fantastic week, everyone.